Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to back to the Movie Bit Podcast. I already messed up my intro. It's gonna be that kind of year. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Chris Renzeria. This is the Movie Bit Podcast, and this is the return of the monthly recap. I did this a little while ago. I think I even did this at the beginning of last year, and I kind of just got away from me a little bit. So I just wanted to get back into it. It is, of course, the brand new year. It is already February, so we might as well talk about the movies that came out in January. Also, aka horror heavy, really. We'll be talking about the theater movies. We'll be talking about the streamer releases. There will be kind of this series, because I will hopefully continue to do this series, will be partial spoilers. So there will be spoilers from here and there. If I get really spoiler heavy, I will, obviously let you guys know. But just be aware that this could be very spoiler heavy episodes in the future, depending on the movies we're talking about. This episode, I think we just get a little bit into the spoilers, not too. Again, I will try to, let you guys know ahead of time. But before we get to the movies that I saw this month, there are, of course, movies that fall through the cracks or movies that I just don't get a chance to watch. So I'll get to those right now. Some of these are mainly because they were, expansion releases and that, came out last year, but, we're getting the wide releases this year. It was also kind of timing-wise, showtime-wise, very inconvenient to go watch these, so we just couldn't get a chance to go watch. So those movies are We Bury the Dead. That's the new Daisy Ridley movie that came out at the beginning of the year. Is This Thing On? Got a expanded release, at least in my area. Green Lantern 2 Migration, didn't get a chance to watch that in theaters. Night Patrol, that was a very limited release around here. The Testament of Ann Lee, also very limited screenings, and also inconvenient showtimes. Iron Lung, that was another one, kind of weird showtimes in my area as well. But that's the new Mark Plyer movie that he's been working on for a while, and I wanted to go give him some support. I just didn't get a chance to watch it. Also, this came out, at the end of the month, so I just hadn't gotten a chance to watch it. All right, so let's get started. Let's begin with Primates. This is the first big movie of the year, and as has become tradition in Hollywood, it is also a horror movie that started off the year, and it's a killer chimp movie that the chimp ends up getting rabies. This is directed by Johan Roberts, a man who knows a thing or two about creature features. He did 47 Meters Down. He did both of those movies, and which were shark movies, and now he's moving on to chimps with Primate. And it's a whole, I didn't want to do this, but I will, for the pun, it's a whole other animal. Roberts builds up the tension, lets you know right from the beginning what this movie is and what kind of movie you're getting into, because the opening kill of this movie is absolutely ridiculous. It got everyone in my theater. It got me, my brother included. We were not expecting that right from the beginning of the movie, and we got it. And it tells you exactly what kind of movie you're going to be into. So there's, it showed you, just how great the practical effects are going to be, how gnarly the practical effects are going to be. And we ended up getting that tenfold. Everything else about the movie, though, besides the practical effects and the kills, was okay. Some things could have, been padded out a little bit more. The characters are very meh. The story is very meh as well. But for a creature feature, it thrives on that, thrives on the tension. It very much worked. So Johan Roberts knows a thing or two about creature features. If he wants to keep doing creature features for his entire career, I think we'll all be happy and we'll all get some very quality to downright decent movies in the future. Next movie on the list, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I really enjoyed 28 Years Later. Of course, that was the last movie. So The Bone Temple was on my anticipated, docket. For that reason, you got a new director to the franchise, and DaCosta, who did not disappoint. I mentioned on the socials, it's something that DaCosta also brought up during the press tour, so she was able to make her own movie. She was able to do her own thing, obviously within the world that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland created, and now also reintroduced to the world with 28 Years Later. She was able to play in that field, but also do her own thing. She wasn't trying to make a Danny Boyle movie. She was trying to do her own thing. And it continues here. It continues to be about the people, what people do when everything breaks down, social norms, society, all of that. It just happens to be in a world where there are also infected people ready to rip you to shreds or turn you just like them. The performances here are phenomenal. Mainly, of course, that belongs to the always reliable Ralph Fiennes, and finally getting the recognition he deserves in the last few years, Jack O'Connell. Separately, they are great together. They are great. They have a great scene together as well. We also get a lot more Samson and what happens to his character. I'm definitely interested in seeing what happens to him in the next movie that we're supposed to get. I hope we get that movie. But the final act of the movie is the very much talking point of the movie as a whole. It's the breaking point for a lot of people. Is it out there? Yes. Was it amazing to watch and experience? Absolutely. Does it fit the rest of the movie? Not really. Does that matter? No, because it was phenomenal to watch. And the fact that Ralph Fiennes was all committed to that scene is all the more amazing. So here's the heavy spoiler territory. Obviously, links are going to be down. Timestamps will be down in the description area if you want to skip that part. Skip this part if you don't want to be outrightly spoiled for what's to come. So here we go. The actual ending of the movie, because that was the third act. We have the actual ending of this movie. We all read the rumors that he was going to probably show up, or that there was going to be some sort of mention of him, whatever the case was. Because I rewatched 28 weeks later, before 28 years later came out, I immediately recognized the house when they showed it. I was like, that is the house where Jim and, I forgot her name now, Naomi Harris's character are at the end of that movie. That is that house. And then we go into the house and, there's people talking. It's the guy talking. And I have seen enough Cillian Murphy of his career. I know what his voice is. So I knew immediately that was him, but I wanted to wait, see what it was and see if it really was him. And then he pops up, and my audience, which was maybe a little less than 3/4 full. So it was a pretty, decent packed screening on a Saturday show at that as well. There was an audible reaction to when he pops up. And there was like a little brief clap when he showed up as well. And I was grinning ear to ear because I'm a real nerd. The real nerd in me popped when that happened. But the bigger nerd in me popped when they started playing that classic theme, the In a Heartbeat theme, that plays, I was saying, 28 28 days later. Because they didn't use it in 28 weeks, but they used it here. And it was all just the more satisfying. I really enjoyed the Bone Temple for what it was. It is a little hard to watch most of the time, and a lot of that has to do with Jack O'Connell's character, Jimmy, and his other Jimmys. But it is all the worth the watch. It's definitely worthy of a sequel and a continuation. What has come before, and a worthy sequel to see where this world goes. So I really do hope we get a third movie. Very briefly, I'll talk about The Rip. Of course, this is Netflix's first big new streaming release. It's a movie that I've personally been looking forward toward for a while, especially when it was announced, directed by Joe Carnahan, which is one of my favorite directors, or at least a director whose new movies I always look forward to. It brought in Ben Affleck, Matt Damon back together for this gritty, suspenseful crime cop thriller where pretty much everybody is suspicious. I mean, no one escapes this movie without looking at least a little suspicious. So hardly anybody is safe from being suspicious. It gets to a point where it's like, I don't trust any of you. Like, there is not one person in this cast where I was like, no, I can trust them. And then they go and do something shady, and you're like, oh shit. All right. Well, okay. It's a great, effective thriller. Maybe admittedly it does overplay it just a tiny bit. And I know some people have a problem with the ending and how it, kind of resolves the issues and everything. I think, everything that came before it kind of, helps out with that, but maybe that's just me. I really much enjoyed The Rip, and I think Netflix started off strong. Can it continue? Who knows? But we'll see what happens. on that end. So I did want to mention The Rip because I very much enjoyed it. The next movie is a movie that I did not enjoy whatsoever, and that is Return to Silent Hill. I mentioned on the socials, and I don't like being this person. I don't like when people do this. I very much don't like being this person, but I had to for this movie. I had to be very upfront, and I said what I said. It's going to take a lot for other movies to knock Return to Silent Hill off of the worst movie of the year list. This movie is not good. It is terrible. And it sucks even more when you know that this is a direct adaptation of the game, Silent Hill 2 game. I'll get to that in a little bit. But if you liked it, great. More power to you. I'm not going to knock you for it. I know there's some people out there that very much enjoyed it. I'm happy for you. I was disappointed in this. I was very, very disappointed. And I wasn't even expecting a lot. My expectations for this movie were very, very low because the teasers and the trailers that were coming out just didn't do anything for me, if not nothing. And the only reason where I was like, you know what, maybe this has a chance is because of Christoph Gans, or Gans, however you want to pronounce his last name. He returns to direct. He directed the first Silent Hill movie, the one from 2006, with Rhonda Mitra and Sean Bean, that I very much enjoyed. I genuinely very much liked his first Silent Hill movie. It's not, he kind of did his own thing. It wasn't really a direct adaptation of any of the other games. It took bits and pieces of the other games and made his Silent Hill movie. But it was eerie. It was effective. It was it captured the spirit of what the Silent Hill games were. This movie, Return, is, like I mentioned, a direct adaptation of Silent Hill 2. And from the looks of it, bare knuckle, a lot of the time, a lot of stuff looks like it's taken directly from the game. Like it is literally taken stripped from the game, and you get some POV shots like a video game. A lot of the time, the camera placement at times feels like you are also playing the game or watching someone play the game. Creature designs are okay. You do get you do get the staple creatures in there, like Pyramid Head and the nurses. There's this really freaky, spider one that I was like, oh, this thing is, gnarly looking, and it's nightmare fuel. Too bad it's stuck in a not great movie. I'll say it's boring. It's boring some of the time. And, it's very repetitive a lot as well. I didn't like it. I didn't. The acting is really bad. Everyone's talking about the fake beard in this movie, and it's very much fake beard. Like, my first thought wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a sweet scene. This is an important scene, kind of a revelation, if you will. And no, the only thing I can think of is that fake ass beard. Like, honestly, they didn't even try. He was like, you know what? We ran out of money. Here, put this on. Like, it's not good. It's not. I really don't like being this person, but this is probably the worst movie of the year. It's going to take a lot. And The Strange Chapter 2 is coming out this month. So, you gotta, or Chapter 3 rather. So maybe, we'll see. Maybe that will knock it off the spot, but I don't know. All right, the next movie, we're talking about Mercy. I was pretty interested in this when I saw the trailer for the first time, and I can say I really enjoyed the movie for the most part. The concept is pretty simple. A man is accused of killing his wife and must prove his innocence. However, we have the added bits. We have the AI twist, if you will, where there's an AI judge, and they will literally give you everything that you need. Emails, social media, CCTV cameras, that you can walk the crime scene if you want. It will literally give you everything that you need to prove your innocence in 90 minutes. If you prove you're innocent, or at least a certain threshold of guilt, you can go. You are free. You will not be executed because that is what will happen. If you cannot prove your innocence, you will be executed. And this is supposed to take place in the near future as well. So if you're like, that seems too crazy. Not really. But they say the near future just to, keep themselves, to put a nice little, make it more a little futuristic, rather. That's what I'm trying to say. So like I said, I did enjoy the movie for what it was. It keeps the pace going. It doesn't really stop. You are with Chris Pratt, his character, as he's strapped to the chair for those 90 minutes. And we are seeing everything playing in on screens and through like this immersive video playback, it does start to lose some steam by the end. And at that point in the movie, again, it's already the ending, so you're kind of already like, okay, it's almost over, whatever, it's fine. Pratt's fine. Rebecca Ferguson as the AI judge, called Maddox, she's okay too. I mean, you can't really go wrong with having Ferguson in your movie, but since she is playing an AI character, she is very direct. There's not really a ton of room for flourishments. She's not supposed to be a real person. She's supposed to be an AI judge. So she doesn't really have that much of a juicy role, if that's really what you want to call it. Again, it starts to lose some steam by the end. Like I said, there's also some character choices that are really dumb. The twists of the movie are okay. They're not really all that. They kind of lack a certain punch to them. When you really gonna just when you start to break it down, you can find a lot wrong with Mercy. But the movie itself, for me, because it was kind of this nonstop, no breaks go attitude, because the movie is told pretty, close to its 90-minute, time limit that it has upon itself. It's fine. But there are some things that, again, if you really had to sit down and break it down, yeah, you can see a lot of flaws with the Mercy, and it's not really that good. But if you just kind of watch it as is, I think you'll have a pretty decent time with it. AI conversation and it being, involved so much in our lives, conversation aside, I think that's, that's kind of where the line will be planted for you, if you don't want to, ignore that when you're watching the movie. Jason Statham is back in his January home with Shelter, and it's not that bad. It is a run-of-the-mill Statham movie, which again, to me, not a bad thing. Not necessarily a bad thing. Statham plays a former government agent, like he usually does. He's hiding until bad timing puts him back on the radar with the young girl in tow. He does everything to make sure that she's okay and safe, while taking out some bad guys along the way. It does start off pretty slow, and it is trying to set the tone. It's trying to show the self-isolation of Statham's character, but it just moves a little too slow for me personally. But once the action starts, it picks up a little bit. The action isn't all that bad either. The fight scene with the asset that is tasked to take him out is the real highlight here. I think that's the one kind of on social media that they were really kind of pushing. It happens about halfway through the movie. But they have another fight scene later on. That one's just okay. I think the one in the kitchen is the better one. Or it's not really a kitchen, it's more a living room. But, Shelter, nothing too special. It's definitely better than Statham's last outing, which was a working man. But it's still, but just don't expect it, anything that changes the game or anything like that. And I know we make fun of Jason Statham movies all the time, and, him being, in one-word movies or two-word movies or three-word movies. But Statham is consistent. And, yeah, he does play pretty much, a variation of the same character, but a lot of time his movies aren't that bad. They really aren't. Again, with the exception of Working Man, but they're okay. They're decent movies to watch. They're January movies. They're the definition of January movies, and that could sometimes be a good thing and sometimes be a bad thing. In this case, it wasn't that bad, so I would say it's a good thing. Next, we have The Wrecking Crew. I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would. The Prime Video movies haven't necessarily always been that great, at least the ones that I've watched. There has been some that I have not watched. But this one actually was really enjoyable. And I think it's mainly due to Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa's chemistry together. They play half-brothers in the movie who reluctantly work together to find out who murdered their estranged father. The overall plot of the movie, and the mystery of it, and how it's kind of resolved, and how they come to the realization of what really happened to their father, it's fine. It's not all that great. It's very it's much more kind of exposition dump than anything. So they trade that off with a big bombastic kind of big house invasion set piece, which I'm not complaining about. It was good to watch. But, kind of, and it's not, it's not like we're expecting, like a drama kind of ending from a movie called The Wrecking Crew. That's a very big action heavy movie with Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa. But, they kind of they're like, all right, let's just move that out of the way because we need this big set piece in the end. And again, the set piece, pretty good. But this is really more Bautista and the Momoa show. The movie is always better when they're together and they're going back and forth in a brotherly kind of manner, taking shots at each other, and they do have a fight button near the end of the movie, which is kind of the turning point in the movie for their relationship and everything else, which is very good. But again, most of it is like nonstop, just kind of insults at one another, taking jabs at each other. And I guess because I have older brothers, I am the youngest of the three, I found it very relatable. So maybe that's just me. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it more. Brother stuff always gets a little more points in my book because especially if it's portrayed realistically. And I think in terms of the banter back and forth, it is very realistic. And there is, kind of a strong pin on why Bautista and Momoa's character, they don't get along. They are also estranged from each other, and there's a reason for it. And it's said at some point, but then it's there's more revealed about it near the end, and it makes a little bit more sense. I just wish they kind of had brought it up a little bit more before, but I think kind of how it plays out, I think also probably makes sense a little bit. But what do I know? But the action itself is pretty solid. Surprisingly more violent than I thought it would be. There is a moment that I definitely was not expecting, and it's in the big highway set piece that they have. So I can clearly say that I was surprised by The Wrecking Crew. I would even recommend it because I totally walked in and I totally thought, seeing the trailer for this thing, that this was just going to be kind of like a me movie. And there's like anybody who's like just down to like turn their brain off and just enjoy stuff and dumb fun movies. I think, the whole dumb fun movie, I talked about this a little bit on a retro rewatch. I think people need to go back to really genuinely enjoying dumb fun movies and not, rely too much on being part of film Twitter or, trying to be like, oh, these movies are beneath me, or not beneath me, but like, I don't really enjoy. We need dumb fun movies in our lives. We do. And this is a dumb fun movie. And this is totally my kind of dumb fun movie. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't mind. I mentioned this on socials. I think I only posted it on Twitter, or X, whatever. Twitter. It's still Twitter to me. But, I mentioned it, that I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel. And it kind of felt like they were setting it up. And I think they kind of backtracked a little bit on itself, to not set up a sequel. But, I can totally see them doing a sequel to this. If Momoa, especially if Momoa and Bautista want to come back and have fun again, because they look like they're clearly having fun. So I totally really enjoyed The Wrecking Crew more than I thought I would, and I would totally recommend it to anybody that's on the fence about it. And I would totally want to see a sequel. I really would. Just because of Bautista and Momoa's chemistry, they are great in this. The Momoa character just totally fits. You kind of have a feeling Momoa's kind of playing the same kind of, almost the same character in every role. Here, it totally makes sense why he's like that. And it's just, it's like, okay, now this is the movie where you kind of need to play that. And Bautista's more kind of like the straight man character, to use that term correctly here, because he is very much the straight man. He is a Navy officer, and Momoa's a cop in Oklahoma, which is very weird. It's like a random little bit of Momoa's backstory that he's a cop in Oklahoma on a reservation. Like, it's just I don't get it, but I guess it makes sense for the movie and for the character and maybe how they wrote it. But I really enjoyed, again, The Wrecking Crew for I don't know, the umpteenth time that I've said it. I would recommend it. The last movie we're going to talk about here in January is Send Help. Sam Raimi is back with a solid effort, part Misery, part Castaway, part Survivor, the TV show. That will make more sense when you watch it. All of that, of course, with the Raimi twist. Send Help is a pretty good, dark comedy thriller. That's the best way I can describe it. That rests it rests entirely and very comfortably, I'll add, on the shoulders of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. Admittedly, it takes a little bit to really get to what Raimi and Co are trying to do. And what I'm about to say is not a dig at the movie. Although I can see it would be to anyone who either has not watched it or has seen it. But for me, it worked because of the execution of it all for the most part at the end. But it feels like this movie is trying to lure you with a methodically slowish pace. And this is the part where I mean it not as a dig, mundaneness. So when something finally does happen, or when something finally does go off the rails, or where something's finally revealed, it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you tense up. It makes you jolt. It makes you jump. It has this visceral reaction that, when you're watching it, when finding something does happen, it's just all that more powerful. And I really kind of enjoy that aspect of it, because there is a good chunk of it where it is just them trying to survive, and McAdams' character is very we've kind of with both characters. What I'm trying to say with both characters is that we've seen these characters before, and the big thing here, one of the main things here, is that at certain points you do feel differently about these characters, and of course, us as an audience, we've seen these characters before. We're trained almost in a way to see and view them and feel for them a certain way. You look at McAdams' character, Linda. She's this very kind of, not antisocial is not the word I want to use. Socially awkward is the word I wanted, what I wanted to use. She's socially awkward. She doesn't really know how to stop talking. At certain points, she doesn't really get social cues that much. So she's just, she's an oddball is what, people would probably call her. And then you have Dylan O'Brien's character, who's this very brash, nepo baby. He takes over the company that McAdams works at. And he's just kind of arrogant. He's an asshole. That's basically what I want to say. He's an asshole. And the way the movie, especially as the movie progresses, you view these characters that way. You're supposed to view these characters that way. And then, as the movie goes on and you start seeing them in these situations, you kind of view them differently. And you view them differently in a good way. And also kind of in a bad way, because, you kind of, by the end of it, there's one character that's very frustrating. Probably assume what that is. But there's the other character, the McAdams character, which will be very interesting to see how people react to her, really, at the end of it. And whether or not, that makes or breaks the movie for you, is maybe the purpose of why. Maybe it's trying to challenge you into kind of seeing how these characters interact with each other and interact with the situation, and how they go about it. When it comes to Raimi and his direction, I mean, it is still a Sam Raimi movie. There are a few jump scares. There's one in particular right when the plane crashes, near the end of the plane crash sequence anyway, that got me. It got me. It got me good. I'm not gonna lie. It got me really good. But there's blood in here. There's some body. I don't want to say it's full on body horror. Oh, I guess I would say body horror. There's I forgot one particular part that is very body horror-y, and it's near the end. But there's other stuff too that in here that is very Sam Raimi-esque. There's blood. It gets a little gory at times. It gets a little nasty. It is Sam Raimi, so just expect that it does get a little nasty at some point. But it's Raimi. I mean, you know what you're getting into watching a movie like this. There is some surprisingly also very Raimi-esque stuff in here. There's a lot of Easter eggs in here. There's one particular that I almost didn't catch, which was in the office scenes at the beginning of the movie. So if you want to look at those and keep an open eye out, keep an eagle eye out for those. But yeah, I enjoyed Send Help for what it was. I can see why and how, why people aren't liking it and why they're not liking it, how they're not liking it. The very ending of the movie does kind of, it's not a whimper, but it is kind of like, I don't know, like I wouldn't know how to end the movie, honestly. But the way it does end, it's just like, oh, okay, all right. But overall, Send Help is a solid, entertaining movie that thrives on the chemistry and the characters of McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, mainly McAdams, really, to be quite honest. But yeah, I very much enjoyed Send Help. I did enjoy it. And this is also not a knock on the movie. I wish I enjoyed it more. And I'm not saying that's a disappointment or, it lends, something to my overall feelings of the movie, because like I'm saying, like I've probably said now, 3-4 times, I did like it. I did enjoy it. It is an entertaining movie. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to somebody out there. That is the final movie of January that I'm going to talk about. All right. Hello again, everybody. So I went back and redid all of this because there is some story. There is some backstory to it. So this is supposed to be its own 2-part episode, two parts episodes for the yearly roundup of movies for 2025. And I recorded some of it. I recorded about maybe half of it. And then, like I posted on social media, I got sick. So I had to stop recording, and I had to also go back and so the plan was to go back and record anyway. A lot of what was going on, so I can trim it down a little bit and have it be a little bit more concise. The problem was I thought I was feeling better, and I started recording, and wouldn't you know it, I wasn't feeling better, and at one part of the recording, I literally felt like I was coughing up a lung, and so I stopped recording that bit, and I waited a little bit more, and then I got busy with work again, and then before I knew it, it was pretty much the end of January, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm doing a January recap anyway. I might as well put the 2 and 2 together and have this be kind of a double build. Single episode. So what I'm trying to say is that instead of 2-part episodes, you're getting hopefully not too long of an episode here. That is, of course, the January recap that you probably just listened to, and now this section right here, which is the lists portion for 2025 movies. I wanted to do that episode. I always like doing those episodes separately, of course. But just, with everything kind of coming down and happening, I just couldn't do it. And it just made sense now that I was doing this episode to just kind of put them together. Because in my head, it makes sense. But I want to do that because I didn't want to release the January recap and then release the January movies. I just figured I'd kind of put them together because, again, in my head, it kind of made sense. So I wanted to do that. So there's a lot of stuff. This is going to be a very condensed version of what I usually do. What I usually do is I talk about first the movies that I completely missed. There's a long list of movies. So if you don't hear a movie, there's a good chance that it's either on that list. And there's a lot of big movies I have not watched. For example, I have not watched Hamnet yet. I have not watched Wake Up Dead Man, the third one. I haven't watched Eternity. I haven't watched Train Dreams. I haven't watched Marty Supreme. Those are movies that I really want to watch, and I will watch now that I still busy with work and everything, but I'm not worried about cramming them in now because, again, we're in February already. I can tone it down, but I do have to watch some movies before, of course, obviously the Oscars, because some of those movies are nominated for Oscars, like Hamnet, but that's a whole other conversation. So this is also where I usually do the Undetermined movies, and the Undetermined movies is usually they're movies that I can't really put them anywhere on a list because I still feel, some sort of, way about them. I probably have to go back and rewatch them again. I know they would be on a list somewhere, but I kind of just made this category really just to, widen out my range, my net, if you will, of movies I talk about at the end of the year. But that's kind of what this is. So I had 3 movies on that list, and I had Wolfman, which came out in January. I know that is in a lot of people's disappointments or worst movies of the year, which makes sense. I'm not, it's not perfect. It's, but I did like kind of what they were trying to do sort of with it. Mickey 17 is on that list. And then the last Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, was also on that Undetermined Movies of the Year. For Mickey 17, it was really more of a... I think what I wrote down at that point was I needed to watch it again to get a really good grasp on it. Because when first time I watched it, I was like, I walked out and I was like, it's fine. It's not my favorite, but it's not a bad movie. Didn't disappoint me whatsoever, but that was that. So, and I have not rewatched Mickey 17, so it would have stayed on the Undetermined category regardless. And Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, it was a little messy. I think that's kind of why I put that on that list. It was a little messy, which is why I put it on there. For my disappointment / least liked movies, I had Honey Don't, which was the Margot Qualley, Audrey Plaza starring movie, which I think kind of just lacked an impact that I thought it would have. Didn't like it. Good Fortune. This was a little bit Good Fortune rather. It was a little bit disappointing more for me. It felt kind of aimless at times, and the dialogue. I put this in there, and I wanted to mention it. It felt like at some point the dialogue was all ADR, and that's not something I want to notice when I'm watching a finished product. Hell of a Summer, which was with Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. He also directed it as well. It wasn't great. I thought it would be more, but it wasn't. A Working Man, Jason Statham, David Ayer. This one's also really messy. It's also overly long for some reason, or it feels overly long, and that's never a good sign. And it just wasn't The Beekeeper. They did a better job together with The Beekeeper. Until Dawn is another movie that I had on my worst / least liked movies of the year. I talked about Until Dawn on the horror recap episode, so I didn't really go that far into that one. Another one, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Really went into that one on the horror pod as well. I still don't like that movie. Thinking about it, I've seen it pop up in a lot of people's lists as well. Well deserved. It's not a good movie. The Old Guard 2. This one's more disappointment than anything. It also kind of just ends, which is what I don't really like about it, really. And it just kind of it felt like an episode more than a movie, if that makes sense. And then the final movie on that list of the disappointments, least liked, worst movies of the year, Strangers Chapter 2. I went on that one as well on the horror recap. I still don't like it. And, we have Strangers Chapter 3 coming out probably this week when I'm going to upload this episode. So I look forward to that. Not really. I say I look forward to that with a sarcastic undertone to my voice. Surprises of the year, I had quite a few, and some of these also belong in my favorites of the year. So I had Ballerina. That was really more of a surprise because I thought this was going to be terrible because I didn't, I wasn't the biggest fan of Len Wiseman directing this. Len Wiseman has been somewhat disappointing with his movies. And I just, wasn't, I didn't know what to expect, really. So this was really more of like, I have zero expectation. Whatever happens is going to be, my thought process on it. And I ended up really liking it. I ended up really enjoying it. There's a lot of things wrong with it, but I ended up enjoying what I saw. So that's why it was my surprises of the year. Hard Eyes was another surprise of the year. I thought this was going to be like a by the numbers forgettable slasher. But no, it ended up being really, really fun. And my audience that I had with me in the auditorium wasn't really that big, but they were really into it too. So I really liked Hard Eyes, and I really walked away more surprised than anything, for real, which is why it ended up on this list. Final Destination Bloodlines, I put it here on my surprise of the year. This also belongs to one of my favorite movies of the year as well, because it is one of my favorite movies of the year as well. But I didn't expect anything. I don't think any of us expected anything from another Final Destination movie in 2025. And we ended up getting a really good one. We ended up getting some really good kills, characters that we actually cared about and liked. But of course, the big one is, this was Tony Todd's, kind of last appearance in the series, right? This kind of right before right around he passed. Actually, I think he passed a little bit before the movie came out, if I remember correctly. And his scene was just it was amazing. It really was. So I had Final Destination Bloodlines on here. My last surprise that I had on here was, again, goes back to my favorite movies of the year as well, and that's K-pop Demon Hunters. I really like K-pop Demon Hunters. I still listen to the soundtrack. I really do. I still do listen to the soundtrack. I expected nothing from K-pop Demon Hunters. Not a single thing. I watched it very late. It came out like in the summer, like in August or something. I didn't watch it till like October. I loved that movie. I really did. It got to me. It was fun. It was engaging. It was emotional. I'm not afraid to admit I teared up a little bit with This Is What It Sounds Like at the end. It's an overall good movie. And I know that the title just drives so many people away, a la me, because I was like, I'm not going to watch that movie. That sounds dumb. And then I watched it, and I fell in love with it. So K-pop Demon Hunters, a surprise of the year, but also definitely one of my favorites of the year as well. So this will be the part where I would then talk about movies that just missed the list. My list as in honorable mentions, and then my favorites of the year. So I had Black Bag on here. I really wanted to watch it again. And that was the thing. That was the only reason why it's not an honorable mention or a favorite movie of the year. I liked Black Bag. Don't get me wrong. I really did like it. I just felt like I needed to watch it again. That was the only reason it was not on this list. The next movie is Havoc. And that's the Tom Hardy starring movie directed by Gareth Evans, who did the Raid movies. This is on Netflix. I wanted a little bit more from it. I'm not gonna lie. I think this was definitely a movie where I think everyone who was excited for the concept of it needed to lower down their expectations, and that's what I tried to do, because I try to pride myself on not holding a movie too high, because if it doesn't meet that expectation, it's not fair to that movie, because that's the expectation that I put on the movie. And this is one of those movies where I was like, I need to really tone it down, because if it's not good, I need to be fair. If it's not good, it's not good. But Havoc, messy, but it's still really, really good in terms of the action. By the end of the movie, it takes a while for it to really ramp up. And once it's ramped up and once it's there, it's like, okay, this is what I wanted. It just takes a while for it to get there. The next movie I had was Predator: Killer of Killers. That was the animated movie, the animated anthology movie that they had on Hulu. I thought it was really great. How to Train Your Dragon, the live action one. I was very on the fence on How to Train Your Dragon about putting it on this list, because I know a lot of people really, really love the animated movies. And I made it a point. I always made it a point when we talked about it. And I was going to make it a point when we talked about it here, was that I had not seen the animated one. So my only point of reference was the live action one. And I will fix that by the time the sequel comes out. I will watch all of them. Just FYI, for anybody who's like, did you watch the animated? I will watch it. I haven't watched it yet, but I will watch it. So my only point of reference, like I said, was the live action one. And I liked it. I enjoyed it for what it was. And I really, I really liked it. Only reason it's not, an honorable mention or a favorite movie of the year is because some stuff kicked it off. And my last one rather for just missed the list was Rental Family. I think this was really more of a kind of a bias thing, because it did come out later in the year. Brendan Fraser was really good. The movie itself is really great. And I just, I don't know. I don't know why I definitely would have put in an honorable mention. I think just the fact that, again, I saw it so late in the year, I think that's kind of the only reason why it's not on there. Honorable mentions. These are the honorable mentions that I had. I had Warfare. I had Bring Her Back, 28 Years Later, One Battle After Another, A House of Dynamite, I will get to that in a second, Frankenstein, and Begonia, Weapons, Fantastic Four: First Steps, F1, Zootopia 2, and Avatar: Fire and Ash. Avatar: Fire and Ash, I got a chance to see it twice. I still think it's too long. That's the only reason I put them in my honorable mentions. It's just too long. Zootopia 2, everyone's like, oh, cash grab. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. F1, great summer movie. That's really what it is. It was a great summer movie. I'm not well versed in the F1 racing fandom, but the movie itself was very good. Fantastic Four First Steps. I was very conflicted about leaving Fantastic Four First Steps on here only because I can see the problems with the movie. But when I really kind of stripped everything down, I really enjoyed it. So that's why I left it on here. Weapons, a lot to unpack with weapons. People are still unpacking a lot of stuff with weapons. Amy Madigan nominated for an Oscar for her role in here as Aunt Gladys. But I really liked the movie. I liked the cast. It doesn't, for me, the only reason it's an honorable mention is because some of the structure stuff, I didn't have a problem with it. It kind of just messed up the flow for me a little bit. But that's just me. Begonia, Yorgos, Emma Stone, you can't go wrong with them. Then you add in Jesse Plemons in there, can't go wrong with him either. It's a great two-hander with them too. Shout out to also Aiden Delvis, I think that's how I pronounce his last name, as Don. It's one of those movies where it keeps you guessing at a certain point, and it's not until it finally confirms something where it's like, hey, this is what it is. So I think for me, the only reason it's an honorable mention, it's not my favorite movie of the year, is I don't know, other stuff beat it out for me. Frankenstein, I love Guillermo del Toro. I have a Guillermo del Toro episode planned for this year. I'm already working on that one. So, Frankenstein, I know he loves Frankenstein. I know he has been a fan of this. I know he's been wanting to do this for a long time. Anyone who knows me knows I love Guillermo del Toro. You listen to this podcast, have listened to this podcast long enough. You know that I love Guillermo del Toro. Visually, the movie is beautiful. No surprise, obviously. Are there changes from the book? Yes, there are. But it's fitting. The changes were fitting to Del Toro's version of the story, which works. It does. I think the spirit of it is also still there. Jacob Elordi, as the creature, fantastic. To be honest, this is the first time I've seen him in anything. I've heard his name, never watched anything he was in. This is my first exposure to him, my first impression of him. It's a damn good one. So shout out to him, and I'm sorry to all the people who were saying, Jacob Elordi is, the next big thing. Not just because he's also tall, but because he's actually a really great actor. So, what else did I have? House of Dynamite. That's the one that I'm sure, that was like the breaks going on for everybody. I know everyone hates the ending. I get it. Or lack thereof ending. I didn't mind it. And the only reason I didn't mind it was because of everything else that came before it. That final act, not the strongest. Admittedly. And I love Idris Elba. But that final act, not the strongest. Everything before that final act is amazing. The tension, the soundtrack, or the score, really, all of it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And you don't know where it's going. I get it. You want to know what the ending is. I think it's more, I don't want to say it's more powerful, the ending that Catherine Bigelow chose. That's a discussion for, people smarter than me to have. I didn't mind it. I did think the overall third act of the movie wasn't as great as, again, the first two. So that's my only problem. And I guess, in some ways it is a problem overall because that is what, effectively ends the movie. And then you have that ending, which is teased in the other two acts. So I don't know. I put it on here. I loved it. Maybe I have some, bias because I got to see it in LA and I got to see it in the theater. When I was in, when I took my trip to LA, I saw it in the theater. I saw it at the Egyptian Theater, which is, co-owned by Netflix. And they put their movies up on there. So I got to see this. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm a little biased for House of Dynamite. So I put it up there. One battle after another. I was going to mention that I am admittedly not the biggest fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. I do like his movies. I do. I'm just not the biggest fan of his movies. It takes me a while to be like, you know what? I want to rewatch that. And that's on me. That's me. That's I know I'm the problem. But I really did like One Battle After Another. it feels like a completely different animal, and I think everyone kind of is in agreement with that. I do, admittedly, I always talk about lengths, and I've been talking about lengths a lot recently when I do it episodes, and I also talk about other movies. The lengths have become a question, but with one battle after another, you barely feel the runtime of this movie. Like, the movie is almost 3 hours long. It never felt like that to me. This movie is constantly going. It is a constant, even when it kind of does slow down, it still breathes, and it's still going at a pace that is bearable. So even though this movie is almost 3 hours long, or at least a little over 3 hours long, almost, if you want to sit down throughout the whole credits and everything, it doesn't feel like that. And to me, that makes it a movie completely work, where it's like, this movie's long, but if you don't feel that length, and you can sit down for another hour, another half hour, and not, feel it, I mean, that works. That works completely. 28 years later, I mentioned a little bit, earlier when we talked about the Bone Temple. I'm definitely going to put this. I'm definitely going to put this afterwards. That I really liked 28 years later, and I did. I really enjoyed it. I like that. We came back to the world Danny Boyle and Alex Garland created, so that was really cool. Bring Her Back. I talked about it on the socials a lot, or not a lot. I talked about it when it first came out, but have been having conversations with other people about the movie. I mentioned it on the socials. This is rough. This is a rough movie. It is. There is emotional gut punches with the ending, and it makes you want to sit in the theater after this movie's over and just kind of exhale and let the movie breathe a little bit, let you breathe a little bit from what you just went through. And the Phillip brothers, they got it, man. They got it. They Talk to Me, and now this. I hope that they do something for, more happy at some point. But if they can keep, doing movies like these and making them, emotional gut punch movies, while also ranking up the tension and making you squirm in your seat like they do here again, I'm all for it. And then, they got Sally Hawkins in here, and she was phenomenal as the mom. And we also have the amazing young actress Sora Wong as Piper. She was great too. So bring her back. Yeah. And then Warfare. That was the last movie I had on the honorable mentions. This movie is so intense. The sound design on this movie alone literally puts you in that movie. And I watched it in IMAX along with a pretty, healthy crowd on a Monday night, mind you. And we were all just accepting our fate of this movie. We were there with them. We were all kind of just admired, and we were all just accepting of our fate, accepting the fact that we were all sitting there, and it sounded like we were in that house with all these soldiers, with bullets whizzing by them all the time, with the aircraft, or not the aircraft carrier, with the jet flying above them. It is an attack on the senses. It's an immersive experience, and it is unlike anything that I watched this year. The only reason it's not a favorite movie is because I can't have multiple movies where I'm like, oh my God, I can't, this is a great movie, but I don't ever want to watch it again, or I don't want to watch it anytime soon. I already have one of those movies on my favorite movies of the year. I don't need another one. And the only reason this one got bumped over here is because of that. Is because it is a hard movie to get through. And I can only imagine what it was like for vets to watch this movie. I listened to another podcast. One of the guys is a vet, and he was talking about how he was conflicted watching this movie because he knows what it's like to be in that situation. And it just kind of, messed with him a little bit. It kind of rattled him a little bit to be kind of in that experience again. But yeah, Warfare, really great. I really did like it. And then, the fact that they fool you with the Call on Me opening is something else. All right. Favorites. Now, let's move on to favorites. Predator Badlands, really, really liked Predator Badlands. Dan Trachtenberg, again, already did Predator Killer of Killers that I mentioned, just missed the list. He did Prey, which was also very good. But Predator Badlands just solidifies that Dan Trachtenberg has his hand on the pulse, has his fingers on the pulse, rather, of the Predator franchise. Let him do as many Predator movies as he wants. If he wants to keep doing that, if he wants to keep making Predator movies for as long as he's in Hollywood and as long as he's alive, I think no one would have a problem with that, because he understands it. He knows these characters. He knows this world, and he is so good at it. And then you have Elle Fanning as a synthetic in the movie as well, and she's so charming, and she's so fun and wonderfully played, and having those two kind of together is just amazing. It's cool. It's really cool. It shouldn't work, but it does. The only problem I had with Predator Badlands was that there was a bit of a pacing problem for me. But other than that, I really liked Predator Badlands. I really did. Companion was the next movie. Sophie Thatcher just cementing herself as the person that you should know and look out for. She is amazing in this movie. And there's this movie, I talked about it. I'm pretty sure I talked about it on the horror pod, because this was kind of horror adjacent. I think at the time that's what kind of where I put it on that episode. I talked about how if you really just break down this movie, it is crafted in such a way that it gives you everything that you need, and everything is explained, and the reason why all of this is happening, and why characters make the decisions that they do. It is so good, and it pulls off the twists and the turns, even if you know the big one about Sophie Thatcher being a companion, but there's still so much more, and it's really great. Another one that has been I was about to say talk to death, but that sounds condescending and not nice. It has been adored, is what I should say. Sinners, obviously. One of, if not arguably one of the best movies of the year, or arguably the best movie of the year. It's just so good. The amount of history that there is there, whether you know about it or you don't, the cast, the soundtrack, the score, everything about this movie is great. I don't know what more I can say that hasn't already been said, and is still continuing to be said. Now that Sinners is the most nominated movie at the Oscars. Is it going to win big? Can we be seeing Sinners win a genre movie, win Best Picture in quite some time? I think it's in good hands if Sinners is able to pull it off. Thunderbolts. I think when I put down originally Thunderbolts, I said, who knew a superhero movie about depression can be this good? That was my opening line of what I was going to, go into with Thunderbolts. But I mean, it's not wrong. But there's of course more playing into it. I really did like it. I think the only thing that I didn't really like about Thunderbolts is the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character Valentina. I'm not a fan of Dreyfus. I'm a fan of hers. I'm not a fan of the character. The character's just it just hasn't been great. It's just the only reason that character is acceptable is because of Louis Dreyfus. That's it. That's the only reason. But you can't win them all. But I know everyone's kind of up in arms about what about superhero. There being too many superhero movies and they're all the same. Not Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is different. It's actually about something, and everyone's like, no, well, we don't want that. We don't want them. We don't want our superheroes depressed. Not superheroes. They made that pretty clear. But still, whatever. To each their own. Y'all just hating. Y'all still hating. My next movie that I had on my list for favorites was The Life of Chuck. We heard nothing but good things about this movie, Life of Chuck, on the film festival circuit. Directed by Mike Flanagan, who, considering his record of horror movies and horror TV shows, this was going to be something very different that he was going to do. And finally watching it and experiencing the movie myself, I really liked it. The performances from everyone and the cast is top notch. It's one of those movies that makes you think when you walk out, but also puts a smile on your face. It is a really good movie. It's one of those movies that, like I mentioned, it makes you think, but it also just puts a smile on your face when you're watching it. It's such a wholesome watch a lot of the time as well. I really like Life of Chuck. I think Life of Chuck is, if I were to make a new category, which I don't want to, but if I were to make one of underrated movies of the year, I think Life of Chuck would be on that list. I really do. I think it's one of those underrated movies of the year. Speaking of not underrated movies of the year, Superman. I know a lot of people hate this movie, and they probably hate it for the wrong reasons. And they probably hate it just because they're bandwagoners, and they probably hate it because it's not part of the Snyderverse. We're not going to get into that conversation. But this is Superman. It is. I haven't read that many Superman comics. I will openly admit that. But I've read enough. And I've read enough to know that this is Superman. David Cornsweet did an amazing job. He's stepping into some big shoes. And he does an amazing job as Superman. Not much Clark Kent. There's not really a lot of Clark Kent in this movie. It is a Superman movie. It's titled Superman. He is Superman for the majority of the movie. James Gunn understands his character. He had a clear point that he wanted to make, and he went out and did it. Plus, he gave us a Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, that was just a straight up hater. Like, there's nothing, like, he wasn't, doing any schemes. Like, he just hates Superman. He just hates him. And everybody like him. And there's nothing else. He openly admits, yeah, I hate you. And that's, you know what? It worked. And then you had Eddie Guthrie, I think it's pronounced I pronounced his last name wrong, I think, as Mr. Terrific. That great standout scene on the beach. Awesome. And probably got more people to realize who the character of Mr. Terrific is. I really like Superman. I had a ton of fun with it. It's one of the handful of movies that I saw multiple times at the theater this year. I haven't done that in a while. Is it perfect? No, obviously. It's nothing. No movie's perfect. It does have some issues. But all around, really, really enjoyed it. And then the last movie I had in my favorite movies of the year, this is the movie I was talking about. This is a movie where it is a tough movie. I like this movie. Downright almost love this movie. But I'm going to be okay if I don't watch this movie anytime soon again. The Long Walk. This one was rough. It's a good rough, if that makes sense. The cast is amazing. The characters are so well written. It makes the movie so worthwhile, despite knowing why they are there and what is going to happen to a lot of these characters. What happens when they stop? What happens when they aren't keeping up the pace? You just know. You want to hang out with these people. Even knowing all that, you want to hang out with these characters. And it sucks so much because you know what the end result is going to be. I love The Long Walk. And we need more team-ups of Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson because their chemistry in this movie, the chemistry of the entire cast really, is amazing. But their chemistry specifically is fucking phenomenal. All right, and I swore. You guys know. I mean, I swear. I've sworn already a little bit on this podcast. But you guys know, I don't really swear on the podcast that much, even though I can. Their chemistry is fucking phenomenal. It really is. And I loved watching them on screen. David Johnson, breakout already. Last year with, Alien Romulus. Or not Romulus. No, it wasn't Romulus. I can't remember the name of the movie now. The last Alien movie that came out last year. What? Why do I? It probably is, and for whatever reason in my head, it's like, no, you idiot, it's not Romulus. Regardless, whatever. He's amazing, but regardless of that, David Johnson, amazing. Cooper Hoffman, amazing. Them two in this movie together, absolutely amazing. It's great, but again, it's not one that I'm going to revisit anytime soon because it's just I can't. But it's really, really good. So that was the recap of 2025. A very down and dirty, just, straight to the bare bones of it, recap of the year. I would have obviously gotten a little bit more into these movies, but obviously, again, with just wanting to put these two episodes together is why why you got the quick, dirty version of it. I usually do like a little preview of the movies of 2026, but we're already in it. And I'm going to do these recaps at the end of the month. And I'll probably do, individual episodes here and there as well for certain movies. But yeah, that's it, everybody. That's the podcast. It's the first podcast of the year. We're already in February. It is also the anniversary of this podcast coming up. I have a special episode for that occasion. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. I don't know what more to say about that other than I hope you listen. And yeah, that's it. So that's all I got for this podcast, guys. Thank you guys so much again for joining me on the Movie Pit Podcast. Make sure to check out all the links down below in the comments. Not the comments. I always do that. In the description / show notes area. I very much appreciate you guys sticking around and listening. Make sure to follow us on social media. Make sure to follow us on your favorite platform to listen to the podcast. And as always, be good people and go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!